أشهد أن محمدا رسول
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله
حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
ممكن تخلص 30 دقيقة لو عايز.
حي على الفلاح
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله
الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر
لا إله إلا الله
حقا لا إله إلا الله محمد عبده ورسوله الله رب العالمين التام والصلاة والقامة محمد رسول الله سمعنا وأطعنا وغفرانك بسم الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستعينه ونستهديه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي المقصرة أولا بتقوى الله فاتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون ثم أما بعد. All praise are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious and the most merciful, and the best of his peace and blessings shall be bestowed upon his beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and upon those that follow his footsteps. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam, at the time of fitan, confusion, turmoil, tests, people tend to forget the principles and the basics. Any challenge we face in life, if we weaken, the challenge will appear much greater than it is, to a point where we think it's unsolvable. And subhanallah, with the iman, the stronger your iman, thus your heart is, the smaller the challenge will appear. And when it appears smaller, then you will build, or you realize that you can deal with it. But if you let it grow really big, it will overpower you. You will lose control of yourself, and you will, la qaddar Allah, eventually get defeated. This principle applies across the board. Whether you are studying in school, whether you're working, whether it's a family challenge, any kind of challenge, the size of the challenge really depends on the size of your iman. Keep that in mind. And it's inversely proportioned. Larger iman, the smaller the challenge will appear. and vice versa. The iman is decreased, the challenge will increase. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, informed us, guided us in many ayat. You will realize that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing a great challenge that's facing the ummah, it's been facing the ummah since the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you would realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, put it in its right size so you can deal with it psychologically first, because that's what it all starts. If you're defeated psychologically, if your heart is defeated, then you're gone. You can't do anything. You need to maintain that inner stability and inner strength. And that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equipped us with the guidance in the Quran and Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be able to stay steadfast and strong. In the following ayat in Surah Ali Imran, starting with verse 137, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ سُنَنٌ. There has been examples that passed. Khalat, it's gone. There have been past examples that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention to. Learn from history. Lesson number 1, learn from history. If you know history, you would see the pattern. You'll be more confident. You know that there is a pattern for civilizations, a pattern of power going up and going down. No power remained on earth forever. Where are the pharaohs? They're gone. The Mayans, they're gone. The Soviet Union, it's gone. And we're not just talking ancient history, we're talking modern history. There are powers that are no longer powers. And there are civilizations that had no power and now they're on the rise. قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ سُنَنٌ. Study the examples of previous nations. فَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانْظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Walk the earth. Walk the earth here means study history or study the ruins of previous great civilizations that were superpowers at their time. And if we go, and this is why it's important, if you go to historical sites, we don't just go to enjoy stones or ruins or other people's creations. We go realize that if a civilization was able to have its structures lasting for thousands of years, they must have done something really powerful. But where are they right now? They're gone. فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين. And here's the catch. المكذبون, those that rejected the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Mukaththib, as mentioned in the ayah, the strong nations that rejected the message of Allah. When they reject the message of Allah, what would they do? Are they just going to reject it and say, thank you very much, we're going to go on with our peaceful life? No. Those that rejected the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not stop at that level of rejection. They will actually attack and brutalize those that accepted the message. So when they reject, they will retaliate, they will brutalize, they will kill, they will massacre, genocides, anything at their power to destroy the holders of the message. And we have a lot of stories in history and modern history that confirms this concept. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah is talking about previous examples, which also tells us that there could be modern ones. And when we're faced with such challenge, We need to go study history. We need to resort to our guidance in the Holy Quran that will give us a full visual of the story, how it started, and we know how it's going to end. Yes, it's painful in between. It's painful to watch, but at least we know the ending. فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين. Look at the ending of these civilizations, how they ended after all the power, the military power, the destructive power. They act as if they own Earth. They're superpowers. Where are the superpowers of history? They're gone. And the same thing will happen to the superpower of modern time. If they were mukaththibeen, if they committed injustice, if they committed atrocities, if they stripped people from their rights, same thing will happen. It's a cycle. We believe it, we know it, and we will see it inshallah. هذا بيان للناس وهدى وموعظة للمتقين. This is a clarification to people. Not just المسلمين or المؤمنين, those who read the Quran, anybody that will seek the knowledge. This is a statement, clear statement, clarification, hoping that people of reason, even if they don't believe, will study history and wake up. Look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's addressing everybody. Study history. If you don't want to study Quran because you claim that you don't believe in it, study history and have some reason, ya ulul albab. Think about it. You would know that this path of aggression will lead to self-destruction. Look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. وَمَوْعِظَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So, hudan linnas, it's a guidance to all human beings to reason. وَمَوْعِظَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Al-maw'idha is an advice, is an instruction to those that have taqwa, those that believe in the Quran. So to everybody else, here's a clarification. To you, Muslimin, Allahumma ja'alna min al-muttaqeen, listen up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing you more. Why? Why is the focus on you? Because you're suffering. Because you need this advice. You are suffering. It's telling us that you need that moral support. However, our suffering is not even comparable to those that are being massacred, that are losing their family members, are losing their limbs, losing their homes. Imagine their suffering. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lift the suffering from our brothers and sisters across the globe. Allahumma ameen. But as a Muslim, seeing what's going on, you're suffering. Allah knows that you're suffering. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to listen and listen well and be prepared by adhering to your values, not giving up your iman, because it's a huge test. And then Allah is giving us assurances. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us in the following ayah, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So yes, you're suffering, and yes, the perpetrator and the aggressor acts as if they have the upper hand. In our evaluation, logical evaluation, true, they have troops, huge destructive powers, and we don't have anything. Our brothers and sisters don't have anything. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now is moving you to the zone of iman. And in the zone of iman, there are different rules that apply. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Do not weaken. Do not shake your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not lose your dignity. وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. Don't even get sad. It's difficult. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. By the way, you have the upper hand. It might sound difficult to believe. Because on the ground we know something else is happening. We know we're being oppressed. We know whether, we live in minorities. We know the increase of Islamophobia. Muslims are suffering in different ways across the globe. But still, Allah is telling us, do not weaken, do not be sad, because you have the upper hand. Well, what's the condition? وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن شَرْط إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. If you have Iman. So again, it all starts here. We develop the Iman, the problem deflates, becomes more manageable, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deliver success and victory. إن يمسسكم قرح فقد مس القوم قرح مثله. If you're hurting, if you're wounded, if you're bleeding, don't worry, the other side is also hurting. Whether we see it or not, whether they have great media machine that covers up how much they're hurting to demoralize us, because it is smart to show that one side is hurting so much and the other side is enjoying their life. This is the game of media. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us to watch for it. Don't give your ears to the media, especially the media, the biased media. Here's a direct advice from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Watch the biased media, because they will show you one side of the story. They will show you that only one side is hurting and the other side is fine. It's not true. The ayah is saying, إِيَمْسَسْكُمْ قَرْحٌ فَقَدْ مَسَّ الْقَوْمَ قَرْحٌ مِثْلُ. If you're hurting, they're hurting as well. Right? وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. And days will be exchanged. تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا. تداول, exchange. What would be exchanged? The position of power will definitely be exchanged. The position of power. So if you're weak, you will flip to become powerful. And those that are powerful, that abuse their power, committed atrocities, rejected the truth, they will exchange position with the weak. It's a must. It's a sunnah. It's given. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. And if you study the situation carefully, you know that the exchange is about to happen. Because injustice will never last. It could take a long time. It could cause a lot of destruction. But it will never last forever. So this exchange, تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, the exchange will happen amongst people as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised. However, ya mu'mineen, what Allah wants from you right now, وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to test your iman. Why? For those of you that will make it after the exchange is completed, you have to be qualified for the exchange. And your qualification is لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Do you have enough iman to qualify for the position of power? To qualify to the position of protecting and regaining and maintaining your rights? You have to make sure that you're qualified. So if you have a chance to work on your qualifications, don't waste time, because the exchange is happening, and it's happening pretty soon. وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ. And those that will lose their lives in the process, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لِيَتَّخِذَ مِنكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ. Allah chose them to become martyrs. A glad tidings to know that some of us will remain, be prepared, qualify yourself, have your iman strong and steadfast to qualify to the era of exchange. And those of you that are gone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with shahada. Do we know what shahada is? So they've already got their ultimate prize. They've already got their ultimate prize because their suffering was more. Definitely, when we look at it, we see. And it is very, very, subhanallah, different, I should say, for us to witness all the details of atrocities that we've read about and heard about in history, but never to see it that clearly. This suffering is not going to go in vain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them with the best of rewards, which is ash-shahada, wallahu la yuhibbu al-zalimin. And the ending of these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Allah does not love the oppressors, the transgressors. Meaning, Allah will deal with them. Allah will deal with them. Don't think that the exchange that we mentioned is something that we, as human beings, with our weakness, can design and implement. Because logical thinking says, if you're in a position of weakness, you want to become in a position of power, let's come guys, let's sit down, let's design, let's come to the design board, and let's work on it. It doesn't work this way. Because I tell you something, the difference is huge. And if you think it's something that we design and we produce, you're lying to yourself. I'm not saying not to work, don't get me wrong. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in our equation, because Allah told us, and Nasr comes from Him, not from us. The oppressor and the transgressor, they're so powerful. Their means are huge. So by you thinking that let's get together and plan it step by step, right there, you would know that you can't do it. You'll fall into despair. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you an amazing deal, saying, maintain your iman, and He will run the process of exchange for you. And I am not calling for people to sit back and be lazy. Don't get me wrong. We still have to do our part with whatever we can. But we know that there's a promise that's going to happen. Promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator. And He will make it happen in our lifetime, and we will witness it, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيفوز المستغفرين. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The proof of the exchange, even if you are, not even if, you will always be the weaker part before the exchange. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivers the exchange, the believers are usually weak at that point. Because what are we talking about? We're talking about shifting from weakness to power. If you're in power already, that means you're already qualified for it. And you're doing the job, and you're powerful, and you're planning, and you're doing everything. وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ, everything you're doing in your part. But we're talking about an ummah, a group of believers that became so weak that they can't do anything. Are they going to stay there forever? It hurts me when I see Muslims thinking, we're very weak, that's it, that means we're gone. No. Because your iman is not going to go, it's there. If you don't want to hold on to it, it is your problem. Let's remember the story of Musa alayhi salam. In Surah Al-Qasas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ. Fir'aun, superpower, huge army, destructive. He owned the resources and everything. إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. He partitioned and spread and isolated people so they can remain weak. يَسْتَضْعِفُ طَائِفَةً مِّنْهُمْ. He weakened everybody so he will remain the powerful. This is exactly what's happening right now. يُذَبِّحُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيِي نِسَاءَهُمْ. He would kill all the males and will leave the females to become servants. We've seen that movie, right? We've seen it in real life. How superpowers will split, will divide and conquer. will divide everybody to keep them weak, and they can conquer, and they have no problem committing genocides and massacres to maintain their power. This is exactly what happened with Fir'aun. إِنَّهُ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. He committed mischief and he destroyed earth. However, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said there right after he described the power of Fir'aun that would appear very difficult to deal with, impossible. It sounds like a mission impossible to be able to face Fir'aun. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. However, it is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's man. He gifted you something without you even deserving it or qualifying for it. نُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ. He's going to gift you for your iman. نُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. The weak ones. He is gifting the weak ones, الضعفاء. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً. Immediately, look at the description. You are weakened on earth. You have no power. Allah is going to gift you to transform from istid'af to a'imma, from weakness to leadership. Al-Imam, the leader, powerful, protecting your rights, taking care of your people. So look at the transformation that's clear in these ayat, from istid'af to a'imma. That's it. وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. You shall inherit earth. Inherit, protect your rights, your lands that were taken away from you. And this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. You shall regain your power. وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. And they shall witness what they have feared. They shall witness themselves losing what they stole from the weak. This is the scenario, my dear brothers and sisters. These are the ayat. We need to believe in them. Allah addressed al-mu'mineen. In kuntum mu'mineen. So what we really need to work on now is to maintain that iman, develop that iman, believe absolutely in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and see the events unfolding before our eyes. Because we see them unfolding. Read them in the Holy Quran, believe in them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely deliver the exchange. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deliver us, protect us to safety and prosperity and success. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our brothers and sisters that are suffering across the globe, in Palestine, in Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, everywhere that they're suffering from the oppressors. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect them and help them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our deen, protect us from كل الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم احفظنا يا رب العالمين من كل الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show us the right path and help us follow it. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم عافنا في ديننا، اللهم عافنا في دنيانا، اللهم استر عوراتنا وآمن روعاتنا، واحفظنا يا ربنا من بين أيدينا ومن خلفنا وعن يميننا وعن شمائلنا ومن فوقنا، ونعوذ بعظمتك أن نغتال من تحتنا، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين واهزم أعداءك أعداء الدين. اللهم من أراد بالإسلام والمسلمين خيرا فوفقه لكل خير، ومن أراد بالإسلام والمسلمين شرا فخذه أخذ عزيز مقتدر، إنك على كل شيء قدير. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وأنت يا أخي أقم الصلاة.